The small town of Maplewood, nestled in the rolling hills of rural America, where everyone knew their neighbors, and time seemed to move a little slower. At the heart of this close-knit community stood Officer Michael Peterson, a fixture of the local police force for nearly 2 decades. His weathered face and keen eyes told the story of countless nights on patrol, keeping watch over the town he called home. As Michael's cruiser rolled slowly down Main Street on a crisp autumn morning, he couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness that had become his constant companion since his wife Sarah's passing 5 years ago. The dreams they'd shared of starting a family together had died with her, leaving Michael adrift in a sea of loneliness. "Morning, Officer Peterson," called out Mrs. Thompson from her flower shop. "Will we see you at the fall festival this weekend?" Michael managed a small smile, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "We'll see, Mrs. Thompson. Duty calls, you know." As he drove away, Michael couldn't help but feel a twinge of guilt. He knew Mrs. Thompson and the other townsfolk meant well, but social gatherings had become increasingly difficult. The pitying looks and well-meaning inquiries about his personal life only served to remind him of what he'd lost. Back at the station, Michael's colleague and longtime friend, Sergeant Jake Martinez, approached with a look of concern. "Mike, got a minute?" Michael nodded, following Jake into his office. Jake leaned back in his chair, choosing his words carefully. "Look, Mike, I've been meaning to talk to you. The guys and I, we're worried about you. It's been 5 years since Sarah. Don't you think it's time to start living again?" Michael's jaw tightened, his eyes fixed on a point just over Jake's shoulder. "I appreciate the concern, Jake, but I'm fine. The job keeps me busy enough." Jake sighed, recognizing the familiar walls Michael had built around himself. All right. Just remember, you've got friends here. We're here if you need us." As Michael left the office, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing in his life. His house, once filled with the promise of a family, now stood as a silent reminder of what could have been. Each night, he'd return to the quiet rooms, surrounded by memories of Sarah and the children they dreamed of having. Little did Michael know that fate was about to intervene in the most unexpected way. It was a chilly Friday evening when the call came in. Michael was on patrol, his mind wandering to the upcoming weekend and the repairs his old house needed. The crackle of the radio snapped him back to attention. "All units, we have a situation at 1456 Elm Street. Possible abandonment case involving multiple minors. Proceed with caution." Michael's heart raced as he flipped on his siren and sped towards the address. As he pulled up to the small, dilapidated house, he could hear the faint sound of crying coming from inside. Approaching cautiously, Michael knocked on the door. "Police, is anyone home?" The crying intensified, and Michael made the decision to enter. What he found inside would change his life forever. 5 young children, ranging from a toddler to a preteen, huddled together in the corner of a barren living room, their wide eyes filled with fear and uncertainty, locked on Michael as he entered. "It's okay," Michael said softly, crouching down to their level. "I'm here to help. Can you tell me what happened?" The oldest child, a girl with long braids and eyes that seemed too old for her years, spoke up. "Our parents. There was an accident. They didn't come home. We've been waiting, but..." Her voice trailed off, choked with emotion. Michael's heart broke for these children. As he radioed for backup and child protective services, he couldn't help but feel a connection to these 5 frightened souls. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Social workers arrived, taking statements and assessing the situation. Michael learned that the children's parents had been killed in a car accident earlier that week. With no immediate family to take them in, the children were facing separation and placement in the foster care system. As Michael watched the social workers discussing the children's fate, he overheard snippets of their conversation. Difficult to place all 5 together. Older ones might have trouble finding homes. Cultural challenges for potential adoptive families. Something stirred within Michael, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. He found himself speaking before he even realized what he was saying. What if I took them? The room fell silent, all eyes turning to Michael in disbelief. Even Michael himself seemed shocked by his own words. The lead social worker, a kind-faced woman named Linda, approached Michael carefully. "Officer Peterson, I appreciate your concern, but taking in 5 children is a massive responsibility. Not to mention the cultural differences and potential challenges you'd face as a single white man adopting children of color." Michael nodded, his mind racing. "I understand that, but I can't bear the thought of these children being separated. They've already lost so much." Linda studied Michael's face, seeing the determination in his eyes. "Why don't we discuss this further at the station? It's not a decision to be made lightly." As they prepared to leave, the oldest girl approached Michael, her young face etched with worry. "Sir, what's going to happen to us?" Michael knelt down, meeting her gaze. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Zoe," she replied softly. "Zoe, I want you to know that I'm going to do everything I can to keep you and your siblings together. Can you be brave for me and look after the little ones while we figure things out?" Zoe nodded solemnly, her eyes never leaving Michael's face as he stood and followed the social workers out of the house. Back at the station, Michael found himself in a whirlwind of discussions, paperwork, and questioning. His colleagues looked on in disbelief as he adamantly expressed his desire to adopt all 5 children. Jake pulled his friend aside, his voice low and urgent. "Mike, have you lost your mind? You can't just adopt 5 kids on a whim." Michael ran a hand through his hair, his voice firm but tinged with a vulnerability Jake hadn't heard in years. "It's not a whim, Jake. Those kids need a home, and I need a purpose. I can't explain it, but I feel like this is what I'm meant to do." As the night wore on, Michael faced a barrage of questions from social workers, lawyers, and child welfare experts. They probed his motivations, his ability to provide for 5 children, and his understanding of the cultural challenges he would face. Through it all, Michael remained steadfast. "I know it won't be easy," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "but I've spent my life protecting this community. Now I have a chance to make a real difference in these children's lives. I can't turn my back on them." Linda, the social worker, watched Michael carefully throughout the process. As the night drew to a close, she pulled him aside. "Officer Peterson, I want you to understand the gravity of what you're proposing. These children have been through a traumatic experience. They'll need patience, understanding, and a lot of love. Are you prepared for that?" Michael met her gaze, his eyes shining with a mix of determination and vulnerability. "Miss Linda, I've been alone for a long time. I thought my chance at having a family was gone. But meeting those kids, it woke something up inside me. I know it'll be hard, but I'm ready to face whatever challenges come our way." Linda nodded slowly, a small smile forming on her lips. "Well, Officer Peterson, it seems like we have a lot of work ahead of us. But if you're willing to put in the effort, I believe we can make this happen." As dawn broke over Maplewood, Michael found himself sitting in his cruiser outside the temporary foster home where the children had been placed for the night. His mind raced with thoughts of the future, of bedtime stories and school projects, of learning to braid hair and navigate cultural differences. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. Taking a deep breath, Michael stepped out of his car and walked towards the house. As he knocked on the door, he could hear the sound of young voices inside. The door opened, revealing Zoe's hopeful face. "Officer Peterson," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Michael knelt down, smiling warmly at her, and the curious faces of her siblings peeking out from behind her. "Hello, Zoe. I promised I'd do everything I could to keep you kids together, remember?" Zoe nodded, her eyes wide with anticipation. "Well," Michael continued, his heart pounding in his chest, "how would you and your brothers and sisters like to come live with me? To be a family?" The silence that followed seemed to stretch for an eternity. Then, slowly, Zoe's face broke into a radiant smile. She turned to her siblings, nodding excitedly, and suddenly Michael found himself engulfed in a tangle of small arms and tearful laughter. As he hugged these 5 precious children, Michael felt the walls around his heart crumbling. He knew the road ahead would be challenging, filled with ups and downs, laughter and tears. But in that moment, holding his new children close, Michael Peterson felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Hope. The small town of Maplewood was about to witness an extraordinary journey of love, growth, and the unbreakable bonds of family. And for Michael Peterson, the adventure of a lifetime, was just beginning. The next few months were a whirlwind of activity as Michael and the children adjusted to their new life together. There was paperwork to file, rooms to prepare, and countless details to attend to. But through it all, Michael felt a sense of purpose he hadn't experienced in years. Zoe, the oldest at 12, quickly took on the role of helper, assisting Michael with the younger children. Her maturity and resilience never ceased to amaze him, though he worried about the weight she carried on her young shoulders. Marcus, 10, was quieter, often losing himself in books or his own thoughts. Michael made a point to spend one-on-one time with him, slowly earning the boy's trust. The twins, Olivia and Ethan, were 8 and full of energy. Their laughter filled the once quiet house, though their squabbles often left Michael feeling overwhelmed. And then there was little Lily, just 4 years old, with big brown eyes that seemed to hold all the sorrow and hope in the world. She clung to Michael from the start, as if afraid he might disappear if she let go. The first night in their new home was a challenge. Michael had spent days preparing, buying beds and bedding, stocking the kitchen with child-friendly foods, and trying to make the house feel welcoming. But as bedtime approached, the reality of the situation hit them all. Lily refused to sleep in her new room, crying for her parents. The twins were overexcited, jumping on their beds and giggling uncontrollably. Marcus sat silently in a corner, clutching a worn photograph of his parents. And Zoe tried desperately to help, her own exhaustion evident in the slump of her shoulders. Michael felt completely out of his depth. He had faced down armed criminals with less trepidation than he felt trying to navigate this bedtime routine. But as he looked at the 5 pairs of eyes watching him expectantly, he knew he had to find a way. Taking a deep breath, Michael gathered everyone in the living room. "Okay, guys," he said, trying to keep his voice calm and reassuring. "I know this is all new and scary. It's okay to feel sad or confused or angry. We're going to figure this out together, all right?" He ended up reading stories until his voice was hoarse, the children slowly drifting off to sleep around him on a nest of blankets in the living room. As Michael looked at their peaceful faces, he felt a fierce protectiveness wash over him. These were his children now, and he would do everything in his power to give them the love and security they deserved. The weeks that followed were filled with triumphs and setbacks. Michael learned to cook meals that satisfied 5 different palates, mastered the art of braiding, well, almost, and became an expert at mediating sibling squabbles. But more than that, he was learning about a culture and experiences so different from his own. One Sunday morning, as Michael struggled to get the children ready for church, he realized he had never actually attended the predominantly black church they had gone to with their parents. Feeling out of place but determined, he decided to join them. As they walked into the church, Michael felt every eye on him. The children, sensing his discomfort, moved closer. Zoe took his hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. The service was unlike anything Michael had experienced. The music was vibrant, the preaching passionate, and the sense of community palpable. As he watched his children sway to the music, their faces alight with joy, Michael felt something shift inside him. This was part of who they were, and he wanted to embrace it fully. After the service, an older woman approached them, her eyes kind but searching. "Well now, you must be the officer who took in these sweet children." "Yes, ma'am." Michael extended his hand, smiling nervously. "Michael Peterson. It's nice to meet you." "I'm Mother Henrietta," the woman replied, looking at him for a long moment before breaking into a warm smile. "You've taken on quite a challenge, Officer Peterson, but I can see the love in your eyes. You come to me if you need any help with these little ones, you hear?" Michael felt a wave of relief wash over him. "Thank you, Mother Henrietta. I might just take you up on that." As the months passed, Michael found himself leaning on the church community more and more. He attended potlucks, learning to make collard greens and cornbread under Mother Henrietta's watchful eye. He listened to stories of struggle and triumph, gaining a deeper understanding of the world his children were growing up in. At home, the bond between Michael and the children grew stronger every day. Each child's unique personality blossomed, and Michael marveled at the young people they were becoming. Zoe, always the leader, often helped the younger ones with homework or resolved conflicts with a maturity beyond her years. Marcus, once so quiet, had started to open up, sharing his love of science and astronomy with Michael during late-night stargazing sessions. The twins, Olivia and Ethan, were a force of nature. Olivia's artistic talents covered the fridge with colorful drawings, while Ethan's love for sports had Michael spending countless evenings in the backyard, teaching him to throw a football or practicing his jump shot. And little Lily, once so frightened, now filled the house with her sweet giggles and endless questions about the world around her. One evening, as Michael tucked the younger children into bed, he overheard Zoe and Marcus whispering in their room. Concerned, he knocked softly on the door. "Everything okay in here?" he asked, poking his head in. Zoe and Marcus exchanged glances before Zoe spoke up. "Dad, can we talk to you about something?" Michael's heart skipped a beat at the word dad. It still felt new, precious. He sat on the edge of the bed, his heart racing. "Of course, what's on your mind?" Marcus, his voice small, said, "Some kids at school, they've been saying mean things. About us, about you." Michael felt a surge of anger, quickly followed by a deep sadness. He'd known this day would come, but it didn't make it any easier. "What kind of mean things, buddy?" Zoe jumped in, her voice tight with emotion. "They say we're not a real family, that you can't be our real dad because you're white and we're black. They say you probably just felt sorry for us." Michael took a deep breath, fighting back tears. He pulled both children into a tight hug, his voice thick as he spoke. "Listen to me, both of you. We are a real family. Love makes a family, not the color of our skin. I didn't adopt you out of pity. I adopted you because I love you, because you're my children in every way that matters." He pulled back, looking into their tear-streaked faces. "People might not understand our family, and that's okay. What matters is that we understand it. We love each other, we support each other, and we're stronger together. Don't ever let anyone make you feel like you don't belong or that our love isn't real." As the children clung to him, Michael felt a fierce protectiveness wash over him. He knew he couldn't shield them from every harsh reality, but he could give them the tools to face the world with strength and pride. The next day, Michael reached out to Mother Henrietta, seeking advice on how to address these issues with the children. She invited him over for tea, listening patiently as he poured out his concerns. "Michael," she said, her voice gentle but firm, "you're doing a wonderful job with those children. But there are some things they'll need to learn that you can't teach them. Not because you don't want to, but because you haven't lived it." She patted his hand. "I'll tell you what. Why don't you bring the children over this Saturday? We'll have a little gathering. Let them spend some time with other folks who look like them, who've walked the path they're on. It'll do them good to see strong, successful black men and women, and it'll do you good too." Michael nodded, grateful for the support. "Thank you, Mother Henrietta. We'll be there." The gathering turned out to be a turning point for the family. The children were surrounded by love and encouragement, soaking up stories and advice from people who understood their experiences. Michael watched in awe as his children's confidence seemed to grow before his eyes. As they were leaving, Mother Henrietta pulled Michael aside. "You're doing right by these children, Michael. But remember, your job isn't just to protect them. It's to empower them, teach them to be proud of who they are, to stand tall in the face of adversity. That's how they'll thrive." Michael took her words to heart, making a conscious effort to incorporate more Black history and culture into their home life. He read books by Black authors to the younger children at bedtime, watched documentaries about civil rights with the older ones, and made sure their home was filled with images that reflected their heritage. But even with all his efforts, Michael couldn't protect the children from every instance of prejudice. The reality of this hit home hard one afternoon when he received a call from Marcus's school. As he walked into the principal's office, he found Marcus sitting in a chair, his eyes red and puffy from crying. The principal, a stern-looking woman named Mrs. Garrett, gestured for Michael to take a seat. "Mr. Peterson," she began, "we had an incident today involving Marcus and another student. There was a physical altercation." Michael looked at Marcus in surprise. He was usually so even-tempered. "What happened, buddy?" Marcus sniffled, his voice barely above a whisper. He called me a name, a really bad name, and he said I wasn't wanted. That's why a white man had to take me in. Michael felt his heart break and his blood boil simultaneously. He turned to Mrs. Garrett, struggling to keep his voice level. And what's being done about this other student? Mrs. Garrett shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Peterson, we have a zero-tolerance policy for fighting. Both boys will face suspension. Michael stood up, his voice firm. No, absolutely not. My son was defending himself against racist bullying. He shouldn't be punished for that. After a heated discussion, Michael managed to get Marcus's punishment reduced to detention. As they walked to the car, he could see the defeat in Marcus's slumped shoulders. Instead of driving home, Michael took a detour to a nearby park. He led Marcus to a bench, sitting down beside him. Marcus, he began, his voice gentle, I want you to know how proud I am of you. Marcus looked up at him, confusion clear on his face. But I got in trouble. I fought. Michael nodded. You stood up for yourself. That takes courage. I'm sorry you had to face that kind of hatred, and I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from it. He took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. Marcus, the world isn't always fair. Sometimes people will judge you or try to hurt you because of the color of your skin. It's not right, and it's not fair, but it's a reality you'll have to face. Tears welled up in Marcus's eyes. Then why even try? If people are always going to see me as different, as less than. Michael pulled him close, his voice fierce with emotion. Because you are strong, you are beautiful, you are worthy, and you have the power to change minds and hearts. Your voice matters. Your life matters. He gently lifted Marcus's chin, making sure the boy was looking into his eyes. Don't ever let anyone make you feel small. You come from a long line of strong, resilient people who faced unimaginable hardships and still rose above. That strength is in you, Marcus, and I will always, always be here to remind you of it. Marcus buried his face in Michael's chest, his small body shaking with sobs. Michael held him tight, his own tears falling silently. In that moment, he realized that his role as a father went beyond providing and protecting. He needed to be a source of strength, a beacon of hope, and a fierce advocate for his children in a world that wouldn't always see their worth. As they sat there, the setting sun painting the sky in vibrant hues, Michael made a silent promise. He would do everything in his power to raise these children to be proud, strong, and resilient. He would teach them to face adversity with courage and to always, always stand tall in the face of injustice. The road ahead would be challenging, filled with moments of doubt and heartache. But as Michael looked at Marcus, seeing the strength already shining through his tears, he knew that together they could face anything. The drive home was quiet, but there was a new understanding between them. As they pulled into the driveway, Marcus turned to Michael, his voice small but determined. Dad, can you teach me more? About being strong? About our history? Michael smiled, feeling a surge of pride. Of course, buddy, we'll learn together. That evening, as the family gathered for dinner, Michael looked around the table at his children. Each of them unique, each of them beautiful, each of them facing challenges he could never fully understand. But in their eyes, he saw strength, resilience, and love. As they joined hands to say grace, a tradition they'd adopted from the children's birth parents, Michael felt a sense of peace wash over him. They were a family, bound not by blood, but by choice, by love, and by a shared commitment to facing the world together. The journey of raising these 5 remarkable children was far from over. There would be more difficult conversations, more tears, more moments of doubt, but there would also be laughter, triumph, and countless moments of joy. Michael Peterson, once a lonely small-town cop, had become something so much more. He was a father, a protector, a teacher, and a student. And as he looked at the faces of his children, he knew that he had found his true purpose in life. The road ahead might be long and sometimes difficult, but with love, understanding, and unwavering support, this unlikely family would face it together, growing stronger with every step. As the years passed, the Peterson family faced their share of challenges, but their bond only grew stronger. Michael watched with pride as his children blossomed into remarkable young adults, each carving out their own path in the world. Zoe, now 22, had just graduated college with a degree in social work. Inspired by her own experiences, to help other children in the foster care system. Her passionate advocacy for foster children and her innovative approaches to family reunification had already earned her recognition in her field. Marcus, 20, was thriving in his second year of college, pursuing a degree in astrophysics. His quiet demeanor had given way to a confident young man with a brilliant mind and a deep curiosity about the universe. The twins, Olivia and Ethan, were 18 and preparing for college. Olivia had been accepted to a prestigious art school, her talent for painting earning her a scholarship. Ethan had received a basketball scholarship to a Division I school, his skills on the court matched only by his dedication in the classroom. Little Lily, now 14, was no longer so little. She had grown into a compassionate teenager with a gift for music, her voice filling the house with beautiful melodies. Michael, now in his early 60s, marveled at the journey they had taken together. The fears and uncertainties of those early days seemed like a distant memory, replaced by a deep, abiding love and a sense of family that transcended blood ties. One warm summer evening, as Michael sat on the porch swing watching the sunset, Zoe joined him, 2 steaming mugs of coffee in hand. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, enjoying the peaceful moment. "Dad," Zoe said softly, breaking the quiet, "I've been thinking a lot about our story lately, about how different our lives could have been if you hadn't taken us in." Michael turned to her, seeing the thoughtful expression on her face. "Oh?" Zoe nodded, her eyes distant. "I work with so many kids in the system now, kids who bounce from home to home, never finding that sense of belonging, and I realized how incredibly lucky we were. You didn't just give us a home, Dad. You gave us a future." Michael felt tears prickling at the corners of his eyes. "Oh, sweetheart, you kids gave me so much more than I ever gave you. You gave my life meaning, purpose. You taught me what it really means to love unconditionally." They sat in companionable silence for a while, both lost in memories. Finally, Zoe spoke again, her voice thoughtful. "You know, with everything going on in the world, I've been thinking about our family story, about how important it is to share experiences like ours, to show people that love really can transcend all boundaries." She turned to Michael, her eyes bright with an idea. "Dad, have you ever thought about writing it all down? Our story, I mean. The challenges we faced, the lessons we learned. I think it could help so many people." Michael considered the idea, a spark of excitement igniting in his chest. "You know, that's not a bad idea. Our story might give hope to other families like ours, or inspire more people to open their hearts and homes to children who need them." Over the next few months, Michael dedicated himself to the task of writing their family story. He poured his heart onto the pages, recounting the fears and joys of those early days, the challenges they had faced, and the love that had seen them through it all. As he wrote, Michael found himself reliving moments both painful and beautiful. He wrote about the first time Lily called him Daddy, the pride he felt watching Marcus win the science fair, the tears he shed when Zoe graduated high school. He recounted the difficult conversations about race and identity, the moments of doubt and fear, and the triumphs that had made it all worthwhile. With the help of Zoe's publishing connections, the book quickly found a home with a major publisher. The day of the book launch coincided with Olivia and Ethan's high school graduation, and the entire Peterson family gathered to celebrate both milestones. As Michael stood at the podium, looking out at the sea of faces, his children, their friends, members of their church community, and strangers who had been touched by their story, he felt a profound sense of gratitude. 20 years ago, he began, his voice strong and clear, "I made a decision that changed my life forever. I chose to become a father to 5 beautiful, strong, amazing children. I thought I was the one giving them a chance at a better life. But the truth is, they gave me so much more." Michael's voice softened as he continued. "They taught me that family isn't about blood or appearance. It's about love, pure and simple. It's about choosing to stand by each other no matter what. It's about seeing beyond color, beyond differences, to the heart of what really matters." He looked out at his children, his heart swelling with pride. "Our story isn't just about 1 white cop and 5 black kids. It's about the power of love to transform lives. It's about the family we choose, the bonds we forge through compassion and understanding. It's about opening our hearts to possibilities we never imagined. As applause filled the room, Michael hugged his book to his chest, feeling the weight of their story in his hands. He knew that by sharing their journey, they had the power to touch countless lives, to inspire more people to open their hearts and homes to children in need. Later that evening, as the family gathered at home for a celebratory dinner, Michael found himself once again on the porch swing. One by one, his children joined him, each finding a spot to sit. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over Maplewood, the town that had witnessed their extraordinary journey. Finally, Marcus spoke, his voice soft but filled with emotion. "You know, Dad, when I was little, I used to dream about finding my real family. I thought that if I could just find people who looked like me, who shared my blood, then I'd finally feel like I belonged." The others nodded, murmuring in agreement. They had all harbored similar thoughts at one point or another. Marcus continued, "But now I realize we had our real family all along. You taught us that family isn't about matching skin or shared DNA. It's about love, about choosing each other every single day." Olivia chimed in, her artistic soul shining through her words. "And now we get to share that lesson with the world. Through your book, through our lives. We get to show people that love comes in all colors, that family is about so much more than what you see on the surface." Michael felt tears welling up in his eyes as he looked at his children. Strong, beautiful, compassionate adults who had overcome so much and achieved more than he could have ever dreamed. "Kids," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "you are the greatest gift I've ever received. You turned a lonely old cop into the richest man in the world, rich in love, in family, in purpose. I may have given you a home, but you gave me a life worth living." As the stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, the Peterson family sat together, bound by a love that had overcome every obstacle life had thrown their way. They had faced prejudice, illness, doubt, and fear, but through it all, their bond had only grown stronger. Michael Peterson, once a lonely small-town cop, now sat surrounded by the family he had chosen, the children who had changed his life in ways he could never have imagined. As he looked at their faces, illuminated by the soft porch light, he knew that this moment, this love, was the greatest reward he could ever have asked for. Their story, now shared with the world, would go on to inspire countless others to open their hearts, to look beyond appearances, and to embrace the transformative power of unconditional love. For in choosing to love 5 unwanted children, Michael Peterson had not only changed their lives, but had set in motion a ripple effect of love and acceptance that would continue long after he was gone. It was a legacy of love, a testament to the idea that family is not defined by blood or appearance, but by the choices we make and the love we share. And as the Peterson family sat together on that porch, wrapped in the warmth of their unconditional love, they knew that they had found something truly unbelievable. A love that transcended color, that overcame every obstacle, and that had the power to change the world, one family at a time.